Hey kids, this is Ivan. How you doing? Sean Driscoll asked me a little while ago. He wanted to see what my space exploration ideas were, and he actually kind of talked about. Hey, look, I'm getting all kinds of texts here about. He's talking about Mongoose Traveler and how that was a great game. I think it was all in response to the like, what would the ideal game for you look like? And he mentioned that second edition Mongoose Traveler looks like it would be written for me. And so thanks a lot, because now I have to go check that game out at some point during this year. That's just what I need to do is spend some more money and look at some other stuff. But it is something I've wanted to check out for a while. I'll be honest, like I just have not played that much science fiction role playing games. It's weird because I've kind of I think it's just I gravitated towards fantasy in the beginning because I cut my teeth on Dungeons and Dragons. Back in 1981, with the Mold Base set. It's funny though because if you look at what I've read and what I prefer to read, when I read fiction, I really gravitate towards science fiction a lot more than fantasy. And not to say that I haven't read a lot of both. For whatever reason, the science fiction tended to grab me more. And it's not always just been like hard science fiction. I definitely enjoy me a space opera, and I know of course that the two genres can kind of merge a little bit. But anyhow. In terms of any kind of role-playing game, what would I be interested in doing? One of the things that kept me away from science fiction a little bit, even though it was available, is, at the time, and for a long time, I just couldn't really reconcile, you can hand wave a lot of injury and whatnot in a fantasy type game. And it's a little tougher, at least it was for me at the time, to hand wave like injuries from, like, say, even bullets and ray guns. You can kind of say, oh, the sword was a glancing blow. You get shot with a laser, you're dead. At least that's pretty much how I was thinking. I love what they did in Astonishing Swordsman. There is a laser in there somewhere, and if you find one of these old things, and pretty much the deal is, if you make a save, you take a lot of damage. If you don't, you're just disintegrated. I love that. That's awesome. Anyhow, so what would I really want to explore, in science fiction? The science fiction role-playing game. The neat thing about science fiction and fantasy, I think maybe a lesser extent, I'm not sure, is that you can explore any kind of idea. Any kind of things that are unrealistic and that couldn't happen, so we're not going to explore it. Well, that's off the table because you can do whatever the heck you want. And then you can throw all these these crazy things in there in terms of like life extension, transhumanism. Interfacing with other cultures, all the good junk. So what would I really want to do? And I haven't given this enough thought, to be quite honest with you. But one of the things that's happened to me in general in gaming, not just like looking at science fiction, but just any kind of fantasy or what have you, really kind of shied away from player characters as being other than human. I prefer to play humans these days, and I kind of like games where the players play humans. Period. And part of that is just because we can understand what it's like to be a human, and you can really, trust me, you can role play for the rest of your life as somebody else and another different personality. I mean, if you want to do something else, that's fine. I'm just saying for me, the more that what being another race would be like, is beyond our beyond our ability to really comprehend. What would it be like to have, several tentacles or be an amorphous blob instead of being, human shaped? To me at that point, that's too much. Like I'd rather kind of focus on what would it be like being a human, having to interface with those cultures and with those creatures. Something like transhumanism is really kind of cool, though. I like the whole idea, however it's going to be. There's a couple of books. One I read recently, one I read quite some time ago. One book I'm looking at right here is called Old Man's War by John Scalzi, and that's a great, it's kind of a different take on the Starship Troopers idea. But you have to be old to go join the service. It's really kind of neat. I don't know if he's written a sequel yet. I think he's going to write 2 or 3 books on that. But it's pretty cool. It's worth the read. Not the best book in the entire world, but the premise, it's really cool. I like it. There's some very entertaining parts in the book, and I really like Tony Daniel's Metaplanetary Superluminal series. And unfortunately, I don't believe he ever wrote the 3rd book in the trilogy, which is really sad because he had some phenomenal transhumanism ideas in terms of people being aspects where you're just a downloaded personality, or cloud ships where your personality is you're no longer a human, so to speak. You're an entire colony ship. Very, very cool stuff. That kind of stuff I really dig. What will we be doing? Well, it depends. one of the things, or several of the things you'd have to, for me, to make it work, to make it worth my while, is you have to do all this kind of like all the stuff that's never going to happen in real physics. You need some kind of faster than light travel, maybe some kind of Ansible. I think Ursula K. Le Guin came up with that first, and then what's his face used in the Ender's Game, and I think a lot of people have plagiarized that idea of the faster than light travel. Certainly Star Trek used it. Subspace, some kind of like gates or wormholes, nifty stuff like that. I think for me, I probably gravitate a little bit more towards a space opera-ish sort of thing. I mentioned at one point liking the idea of something like Farscape. I also like kind of, I'm not sure if I want to play Serenity, but I like that kind of shtick a little bit. I think I want to play humans, humans, transhumans. Let's figure out what it's like interfacing with these other races. Should we meet them? But also just having maybe like some kind of galactic, what do you call it? One of those big organizations, one of those empires, something like Foundation, maybe something more like Dune, that sort of thing. That might be kind of interesting with the interesting interesting type stuff thrown in. Maybe the something like the Daemu trilogy I talked about, where there's some race that was there before, and of course there's thousands of stories written about that kind of stuff. I'm trying to think what other story I was really kind of looking at around here that I just was looking at, and now it's gone. Something like Fire Time, Paul Anderson. The idea that a lot of times when you interface with these alien cultures, not going to turn out so nice. But then you have some other neat things, like you meet the Ishtarians. Well, they live so long that they're an NPC Ishtarian is going to know you and your grandchildren and their grandchildren as well. What would that be like? So some kind of nifty stuff. I'm not sure if I'd really want to play just like Alien Race of the Week and do kind of like the old Star Trek kind of thing, a little episodic. Not sure if I'd be really into that sort of thing. Something a little bit more like Deep Space Nine. That'd be kind of cool. I'd like a little bit of that kind of shtick. Not sure if I'd want the Gilligan's Island approach of Voyager. That's just one brand of sci-fi or whatever. But yeah, I'm not really sure. Unfortunately, I just haven't thought about this enough. But I am very intrigued by it. And look, and I got a phone call now, so I got to go. But hope you had a good one. Hope I answered some questions.